I realized real quick that, hey, I wasn't an accountant. I was an entrepreneur, and I just didn't realize it. I didn't enjoy accounting, and I still don't today. I don't enjoy accounting, but I love the entrepreneur part of it and growing a business and seeing how successful I can get that business. And then even more so, helping other people be successful running their business, which is even a bigger joy.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book and Live Switch. Today, we are welcoming / preparing to learn from Jody Grunden of Anders CPA, which I feel like this is right about the time to start talking taxes. Jody, is that safe to say?
I guess so, but man, you don't want to ask me tax questions, that's for sure.
No. So let's just break it down. What is Anders CPA?
Yeah, so Anders CPA, they're one of the largest CPA firms in the nation. They're pretty large. They do a lot of different things, audit, tax. But the special that I run is in what we call the Client Advisory Service Group, which is virtual CFO services. So that's something that I founded way back when it was about 20 some years ago. A lot of CPA firms now use that type of a service. I actually founded it back, 20 plus years ago. So it's been a great ride.
Cool.
Before it was even a thing. Yeah, it was one of those things that there was something called outsourced CFO or outsourced CPA service, which was outsourcing it to a foreign country type of thing. And I'm like, well, that's not what I meant. So I'm trying to figure out what can I call it? And so I got the thesaurus, if you remember one of those things. I got one of those things out. I'm like, what could I name this thing? I thought virtual sounds kind of cool. And then my partner's like, well, no one will think you're real. And I'm like, they will. It'll catch on. And back then we had the yellow pages. And so we did the yellow page thing, didn't really get a whole lot of traction. And then we decided, hey, we're going to do this on the internet. And so when we did it on the internet, it was kind of cool because nobody else was doing it. So it was one of those things that we were right away number one in the rankings.
Way back 20 years ago, man. That's
number, and we haven't gone far from that. So we're still number one in the rankings today, which is kind of cool.
It'd be interesting to go back and just visit, if you had a time machine or something like that, and just visit what was the internet like 20 years ago.
It was brutal.
No YouTube. I don't even know if Google was around back then. I mean,
it was a
totally different world.
It was, and it's kind of funny because everybody thought, well, that's a big waste of money. Don't put money in there, because we got out of the yellow page. Yellow page is what accounting firms are always in. Accounting firms, law firms, you name it. You had these big ads. You spent tons of money, and then you just kind of hope people called you. And I didn't have the money back then, so it's like I bootstrapped my own company. So it was one of those things that I just couldn't compete with the big boys. And so the only thing we could do is try something different. I thought, hey, this internet thing sounds great. Let's try it. And and everybody thought, hey, you're wasting your money. No one's going to call. And the funny part is nobody called. It took a long time to actually get things going and figure it out and get people to realize what virtual CFO even was. It took about, I'd say probably 5 to 10 years really to get a lot of traction for it.
So you had to stick with it for a while.
Oh yeah. It wasn't one of those things, overnight successes. It was, hey, we started it. And they always say, building the plane as it's flying in the air type of thing. That's exactly what we did. It was like, okay, what can we do to make this better, improve this? And we were not profitable at all for probably 8, 9, 10 years of that. It was one of those things my wife kept asking me, hey, when are we going to do something? Do you need to get a job? I'm like, no. Next year's going to be the perfect year. And then next year coming, there'd be all these obstacles that we didn't overcome. And then it's like, oh, well, next year will be the best year. And then finally next year ended up being the right year. And it just blew up from there and became super profitable, super high growth. And, we grew it to, probably $10 million or so before we actually sold it to Anders and became part of the larger accounting firm.
Gotcha. The irony of the CFO not making money, right?
Yeah, I know. I tell everybody that too. The other irony is I can't add in my head.
Oh wow! Okay.
You got a CFO that has to use a calculator. Which is kind of funny. And the funny part about that was on the very first. So I speak at a lot of conferences, and the very first conference I was invited to, I was super unprepared. It was one of those things I just didn't know what to talk about. Here I'm supposed to talk to 30. At that time, agency owners and teach them how to be profitable and all that kind of stuff. And the guy's like, do not, whatever you do, do not bring a PowerPoint. I'm like, okay, I won't bring a PowerPoint. And I'm thinking, okay, now what do I do? What do I do? And, the funny part about it was my luggage got stopped. I got routed to the wrong airport. So I came in, no luggage. I didn't have anything really to wear other than I had a t-shirt. I had shorts and gym shoes. And I was like, what do I do? And I went to the local mall, bought some stuff. And at the time, my credit cards kept getting denied. And I was like, what's going on here? Why are my credit cards getting denied? This is weird. And so eventually I looked across the mall. There was a Tommy Bahama store there. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. That's a little different. I'll get some Tommy Bahama stuff. Cause he said, do not be the traditional accountant. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And, but by the time I got done, I was like, the only thing I had left was my debit card because nothing was working. And so I went to this dinner after the fact, and you can imagine here the finance guy comes in. At that time I was wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt. I'm like, hey, finance guy wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt. I'm like, hey, I'll get the hors d'oeuvres for 30 business owners here. I'm thinking this is kind of cool. And I go to pay with my debit card, and guess what? It got denied. I'm like, what the heck? And so I turn to the guy next to me. I'm like, I know you don't know me really well. I'm the finance guy, but my credit cards are getting all denied. Can you cover the hors d'oeuvres and the meal for me? And he goes, you don't travel much, do you? And I go, no, not at all. And he goes, well, you got fraud protection against your cards. I'm like, you just got to go back to the hotel tonight, call them up, and they'll release all of it, and then everything will be fine. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And that's kind of that's why I'm wearing Tommy Bahama right now, because it was one of those name or branding things. But I went into this presentation, and then I told everybody that the experience. And they're like, they just start laughing. It was a great icebreaker type of thing. And then I had somebody say, hey, I told them, hey, and again, I can't calculate it all, and so I had somebody be my calculator. And I got up on an easel board and just kind of broke it down. Hey, here's one person, and here's how many hours they're working. Here's what they should be. I just kind of drew a little stick diagram all the way through. Asked everybody in the audience, how much do you think they could raise their prices and still not lose a client? And we settled like on $100 an hour, whatever it was. I go, hey, let's just mark it down to $10. Just mark it something simple. And so I went through that diagram, broke it out to like, here's what a 20-person shop would make, and then there's like $3 million. I go, now let's go ahead and see what that $10 change does. I went through that same thing, and it generated an extra $300,000 in cash. I'm like, there we go, $300,000 in cash just for making that one small change. And then it was like, everybody's like, oh my gosh. And so at the same time that getting that calculator, the guy's doing all the calculator and feed me the numbers as we're going through. It was pretty cool. And
that's awesome.
And they're like, hey, could you do this more often and speak more often? I'm like, yeah, we could definitely do this. And they said, but the only way you're going to do this if you wear this Tommy Bahama shirt, because that's your key. And so
instead of a suit, if I have to suffer through it, right?
Oh yeah, and it's kind of funny because I got this innovation award in accounting in about 2017, and I had to go in front of the AICPA, which is the governing body for accounting firms, and everybody's wearing suits and ties back then, and they said, hey, you won this innovation award. We'd love for you to come and talk, and tell them what you're doing with the CFO side and what it's all about. What does that mean? And I'm like, well, the only caveat is that I don't have a suit. And they're like, what do you mean you don't have a suit? And I go, I don't wear suits. And they're like, well, you really need to talk professional. I go, well, the only way I'm going to come is if I can wear my Tommy Bahama shirts, my Hawaiian shirts. And they're like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, no, this is what I wear. And then the line went dead. Let me check. And about 10 minutes later, they came back. He goes, well, as long as it looks professional, we'll allow you to wear it. And it's been kind of great. I mean, I speak all across actually I was many different nations, and I've spoken all across the United States, and I got the same outfit. The Tommy Bahama looks super casual. They always ask where you're from. I'm originally from Indiana, and that just even blows their mind even more. And I live in Florida, and that's more acceptable. But yeah, it's just kind of funny how personal branding really can help you out, and how just a small thing like that it can be huge for your company.
Yeah, it's funny because there's trade shows that I go through on the veterinary side.
Okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
And I wear a pink suit.
Yep.
Just because it's fun and stands out.
Yep.
But I also, when I bought the pink suit, I also bought a blue one. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know what DECA is.
No.
DECA, I'm sure it stands for something cool, but it's essentially students, high school and college.
Okay.
Enter, and if they're going to go into business,
mm-hmm.
they get into DECA, and there's competitions and stuff like this.
Okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
So I get asked to judge those. So I go to one of these DECA conferences, and I'm in this big room at some technical college or something mm-hmm. like that. And this is before the students come in to get judged. And
Yep.
I'm looking around and all I see are blue suits.
Oh my.
And I'm in a blue suit. I was like, man, I should have wore that pink one because I just feel like a number here.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So the branding, you're totally right. You just got to stand out, peacock a little bit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just another blue suit.
Yeah, and that's amazing because all these conferences I go to, there's 4,000 people there, and people just come up. They know exactly who I am without question, because the way the outfit I'm wearing. Because I'm wearing a cool Hawaiian shirt, looks a lot different than everybody else, and they can just pick me out in a crowd. And that's really helped out. It's helped the company. It's helped me out. So like I said, it creates that personal brand that just people just don't forget. And yeah, I can credit a lot of our high growth because of the personal brand part of it.
That is awesome. All because of a Hawaiian shirt.
I know. Tommy Bahama owes me money.
Or vice versa, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, we're not going to talk. We're not going to go that direction.
No. CFO. Tell me, so Jody, what were you doing before you started your business then?
Yeah, so I was an orphan accountant, and what I mean by that is that when I graduated from college, I thought, hey, I want to for one of these big CPA firms, and I got an opportunity to work for Crow, which is a really nice CPA firm. I decided pretty quickly that hey, auditing wasn't something I enjoyed. It was like this is not for me. But they had this thing called tax, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great. And so I started doing the tax stuff, and it was a lot funner. I liked it, enjoyed it a lot more, and it just happened that. We lived far from my parents, from my wife's parents. She's like, hey, let's move back home. I'm like, okay, great. And so then I worked for even a larger accounting firm there, and they I was in the tax department. After a while, I was like, man, I just don't like tax. And I actually got fired and was told that I would never be successful in accounting. And I was like,
wow.
Wow, the managing partner is like, okay, that's a big shocker when you're right out of college and the managing partner of a large accounting firm says, this isn't for you. And I was like, okay, what do I do? So I went to work for a manufacturing company. It was a $250 million manufacturing company. And with that, I loved it. That first year, man, it was great. It was new, it was exciting, it was challenging. I was doing a lot of cool stuff. I was automating everything. And I was working probably 45, 50 hours a week, but time flew. It was awesome. About year 2 or 3, I was working like 20 hours a week trying to figure out what to do because I automated everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I found myself surfing the internet. I was like, I can't do this. This is not good. And so and the company at that time was going through their first layoffs they've ever had ever. And I was part of the committee, which made it even worse. The guilt was like, oh my gosh, here I'm hardly working and I'm laying people off that have been here for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years, whatever that might be. And so I asked the CFO, I'm like, hey, I think I've got to bow out, and I think I'm going to go ahead and start my own firm. Is that okay? And you're like, that's okay as long as you take us as your first client. I'm like, well, I'll do that. And so I was like, well, that's great. And at that time, it was like a $30,000 tax return. And I thought, this is great seed money. I can do that. And from there, it just really kind of helped me, get out of that mode because, I realized real quick that, hey, I wasn't an accountant. I was an entrepreneur and I just didn't realize it. I didn't enjoy accounting and I still don't today. I don't enjoy accounting, but I love the entrepreneur part of it and growing a business and seeing how successful I can get that business. And then even more so helping other people be successful running their business, which is even a bigger joy. It's kind of funny because all the way through you're like, my business partner at the time, Adam, he's like, hey, why is it that all of our clients make more money than us? And it's like, we will get there. Don't worry. We'll get there. The more we can help them grow, and the faster then we will then in turn reap a reward afterwards. And we did. It took a while, but like I said, as an entrepreneur, that was my passion.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I mean, in the end, I imagine your industry and mine are similar, where our client's success will lead to our success.
That's exactly.
If they're not successful, we got a rougher day. You got another employee barking back there.
Yeah, I've got three employees barking back here.
Oh,
little munchkins back. Yeah, little munchkins. I wouldn't recommend 3 of them.
No.
I thought 1 was perfect. 2 was like, okay. 3 was like, oh no. So yeah, for sure.
Fair.
But yeah, you're right. 100% right. The idea is that if you can make your employees successful, if you can make your clients successful, you too will then become successful. I think it's a natural thing. But it's hard. It's hard to have that all three work. It's hard to have a profitable company, to have a high revenue company that's growing, clients are happy, client satisfaction, and then also your employee satisfaction. And I was very fortunate to actually have that. And I had two of the three pillars there for about 10 years. That one was the profit side. And then eventually that profit side came in there, and man, that's when I just saw everything blow up. And I blow up in a great way. Revenue even skyrocketed even more. Profits, went really high. I mean, we were growing at about 30 to 35%, 40% clip a year in revenue growth with a 25% bottom line. And but when we got to that $10 million mark, we had $1 million in cash just sitting in the bank. And you think about that, $1 million in cash sitting in the bank, no risk, right? All the risk there, no debt, which is great. And then we got to that point where we had that 25% bottom line, which means my partner and I were splitting basically $2.5 million a year. And it was like, and we had everything really just going. And the cool part about it is we build it so that, again, I hate accounting. I told you that. So that I wasn't actually doing any of the work. I was actually running the business. And that is when we really start seeing things really just, really, blow up in that part. When I got out of the helping other clients, teach people how to do it, and just really focus on growth.
That is super cool. So help me understand this, Jody. When you start your business, you got to educate people, just let them know that you exist, let alone if they want to use you or not.
Yep.
Which is very difficult when you have to rely on education first instead of just like, hey, we sell pizza, buy my pizza instead of their pizza. You got to say, hey, we sell this entirely new service that you've never heard of, but I know you need. Right. So tell me what you did for marketing to get people to understand what you actually offered.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Because, if I were to pick another profession to go into, it'd be marketing. I loved marketing. Marketing was like something that it just clicked for me, which is kind of funny because that was kind of our first vertical we went into as marketing agencies. I was like, oh, these guys are awesome. I can do this. This is something that I really enjoy talking to. I can really help these folks out. So marketing is a big part of it. And so, but marketing, what really helped us out was the thought leadership part. And so, thought leadership at that point really didn't even exist. But I had to figure out how to do exactly what you're talking about, because not only did clients not understand us, how do you hire people all across the nation? Because we were fully remote. we've been fully remote for since 2013. So without an office.
Wow,
so how do
you're talking slow internet days?
Yeah, slow internet. Basically, there's nobody out there that even understands what virtual CFO is, and who in California is going to come work for a firm in Indiana without moving. That was the tricky part. So we had to really become that thought leadership. And what thought leadership to me is, when we went to these conferences, we didn't sell. We educated. We taught everybody in there how to be successful, with the idea that, 10 to 15% of them are going to figure it out because we helped them out. Another 15 to 20%, may end up figuring it out down the road. But there's going to be a lot of them that eventually knock on our door and say, hey, we'd love to get your help if you can. And that's what really picked things up, because thought leadership, it was really the key to all success. So we would go to conferences and we would speak. We did a lot of digital marketing. Again, keep in mind, our SEO is number one. And so we were marketing like crazy. We blogged at least once a day for about 10 years, which is a lot of blogging. That's for sure. Tons of blogging, and writing articles, wrote books. We did webinars. We did tons of things just to get us out there. But again, the idea was not to sell; it was to educate. And it's kind of cool, because when we go to all these different conferences, we'll have folks that I've never even met before come up and say, hey, because of you, I'm super successful. I'm like, and it's because they read a book that I had, they heard me on a video, they did whatever, and they learned how to, basically they were able to mimic me, and it was great. But mimic me in a way that they put their own flavor to it, which was even better. And because of that, that's where the growth, blew up, because we did it not only in the creative agency space, the digital marketing space, the SEO, the PPC, all the different marketing agency space, but we also did it in the accounting space. We would go into the accounting space and say, hey, here's how we're doing subscription-based billing, something we created back in 2004, we've never invoiced. We've always just simply hit their bank account every Monday, which is kind of cool. We did a Monday, a weekly subscription. And with that, what does that mean? It's like, well, we had to figure out how to productize a service, which was something that nobody did back then. Now it's becoming more and more popular, right? And with that, the cool thing about that is that once we productized it and once we did the subscription, saying, hey, it's going to be X amount of dollars a week, clients loved it because they weren't getting invoices anymore. When we met with clients to go through cash flow, it was never an issue because it was just an automatic thing coming out of their bank account or their credit card or however that payment was going to be made. It was just those types of things that we were teaching other folks how to do, whether it was a marketing agency or accounting firm. That's like, wow. And then when we became virtual, everybody's like, what do you mean virtual? We were the first, according to Forbes, we were the first financial firm to ever be virtual. And it wasn't one of those things that I just made up and thought, hey, one day I'm just going to go virtual. It happened to be a client of ours that was one of the first 25 firms that ever in the world to ever be virtual, and we just happened to pick them up as a client. They were in Rhode Island, we were in Indiana, and I'm like, man, this thing really is pretty cool. I was watching how they did it. I was part of their meetings because I was their CFO, so I was part of their meetings. I'm like, this. I think we could do this in the accounting industry. I think this could be a great thing for us. I think, man, we could really grow if we could figure out how to become virtual. And that time we called it distributed, because we didn't have an office. And, I went back and told my partner we were going to do this. We had stand-up meetings back then, just make them quick, to the point and all that kind of stuff. And I always started meeting out with a joke. It's just kind of one of those things, kind of getting the flavor of things. And I started off, hey, guys, we're going to go virtual. And I thought everybody's going to be so excited. The room was super quiet. I was like,
what does that mean?
What are you talking about going virtual? I'm like, well, we're virtual for our clients. Why can't we be virtual for ourselves? And I heard all the different reasons why, because of the internet, blah, blah, blah. No, you have to handshake people. People don't want all that kind of stuff. And it was like, the pandemic solved that issue for a lot of people because they figured it out. They had to, they're forced to, but we did it beforehand and we went through and figured out all those issues. And so that was just like one thing, now we can teach other people how to do it, and with the accounting world today, the accounting world, there's tons of accounting firms out there, which is great, that are completely virtual. And it's like, wow, this is kind of neat, and of course it wasn't my fault that person was. But I think I think I can take some credit a little bit for the industry starting to work that way, because seeing how we did it and how successful we are, the fact that we promoted it and showed people how to do it, it just kind of caught on. Now, not everybody did it well. That's for sure. Not everybody did it right, and some
people still don't. Right?
Yeah, they still fail at it, and they say, "Oh, you can't do it." It's like, well, you can. Here's how you do it. And they always talk about, the culture is not great. Like, our culture is awesome. Our employees don't leave, which is nice. Our churn rates maybe 7-8% tops. A year, and they love to come to work. They love to work. They love that flexibility, that autonomy. All the stuff that people think, you need to have somebody and we need to look over their shoulders. If you give them the autonomy and you create the processes and the system for it, people will thrive in it. Not everybody, most people will thrive. People will thrive in it there, and that was key. And just teaching folks how to do that. So you ask, how do you do that? Well, you teach, you educate, you take risk, you try to figure out how can I benefit you, and let's figure out a way to make that better. That's what we did. That's thought leadership in a nutshell. It wasn't going out knocking on doors. It wasn't, ringing the bell, calling people up. It was just education. And it like I said, it wasn't an overnight thing by any means. It took a long time to really kind of build that credibility to where they are now. I can go to really any event, and there's people. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool, actually. People come up and ask me questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And just being open with it, which is also something weird too. Accountants are never, they're guarded with their secrets, and it's like,
yes.
And why are you telling people all this stuff? It's like, why not? It's a big world out there. It's a blue ocean, they call it, and why not? It's like, it's only going to help everybody if we can all learn how to get better and faster. And I've always taken that approach, and that's why I have a lot of agencies working for us, a lot of law firms, all these different companies that, buy into that system process. And it just works out really well.
Tell me a story about the technology side, because you're talking 20 years ago.
Yep.
Bandwidth wasn't anywhere near what we're at now.
Right.
Zoom was probably not even a pipe dream.
No, it was
So I
WebEx back.
imagine you couldn't have been doing video meetings.
We were. So
You
we were doing,
were.
initially we were doing telephone. So initially it was over the phone, super difficult, doing things over the phone there.
You're talking conference calls.
Yeah,
Nobody know
conference
who's
call.
talking.
Exactly. And you had to, and try to go over financials and forecasting, all that stuff when talking with somebody, which in a way, it really kind of helped us out because it helped us learn how to tell a story versus read numbers off of a financial statement, which, every business owner looking at that really doesn't know it real well, doesn't understand it. When an accountant's talking about it, usually they're talking over their head, all that kind of stuff. And what we came up with is, hey, we've got to be able to communicate this in a way that you, the business owner, can improve your business without worrying about the numbers. And what we did is we created what we call dynamic forecasting, and we've been doing it for 20 plus years. And what dynamic forecasting is that we'll take a 12-month runway and we'll break it out by month, and then we'll take non-financial indicators and build them in there, things that the business owner can control, and show them how those levers actually increase and decrease revenue and profit, but also how they increase cash. And that's the key, cash. Because when we go in and tell people that, hey, you got to have 10% of your revenue in the bank at all times. So if you're $1 million company, you should have $100,000 in the bank available anytime where you can pay bills. You don't have that. You don't have to worry about the AR mess or AR delays or all that kind of stuff. But that's how you run the business, 10%. And they look at me like, well, that's great. How do I do that? Well, let's show you how to do that. And you build that you build that dynamic forecast. And I use this example a lot where one of our first companies, and we still actually have them as a client, was a truck repair company, big semi truck repair company. Semis are getting a wreck. They'd go pick the truck up, they'd fix it up, and then they would sell it, they would sell it for, to the open market, or they would fix it up and sell it back to the company that belonged to, type of thing. And with that, the owners, so you can kind of imagine the ownership there. Not great with numbers, awesome mechanics, phenomenal with what they did. And so when I'm talking to those folks, I'm not talking about, hey, you've got to have a 10% increase next month, and here's what that's going to be. I'm talking about, you got 5 trucks coming in. What's your average price for those trucks? $80,000. Okay. How many are you going to be able to get completed next month? Okay, 5. Okay, great. But what do you think the next month? Well, it's going to be icy, so I expect a little bit more. Let's move it to 10. And so we're talking trucks coming through, right? And so something that they, again, can control. How much do you have in your inventory that you've got? You're behind on that you haven't even started on yet. Oh, we got 15 of those. Okay, great. And so when we talked about it, we built that up. And based on that, we're saying, hey, here's what your bottom line is going to be at the end of the year. Here's what your tax position is going to be like at the end of the year, because we can predict it now based on what they're doing. And then, oh, by the way, here's what cash looks like. You got 10 on your line of credit right now. You should be able to pay that off by November, or hitting your numbers there. And then we meet the next month. We're high fiving. Hey, that sounds like a great plan. Meeting the next month, and then all of a sudden it's like, you didn't hit your numbers, because you only had 3 trucks come through. Is that, what happened there? And so, we had all this issues, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Is that going to be a reoccurring thing, or is that a one-timer? Oh, that's a one-timer. Okay. So let's keep the forecast as is, the way it is. You still got a lot of inventory, but here's what your cash looks like now. Instead of having it paid off by November, maybe it's December, it won't be paid off. And so then the next month comes by, same thing happens. 3 trucks come through. What's going on? You said you had all things fixed. You're like, yeah, it was slow. I go, hey, let's just adjust the forecast down, because I don't think we're going to be hitting it the way that we thought, and we would adjust it down in the future months. Okay, it looks like maybe next quarter we're going to be it, but here's what we need to do. And they're like, well, we can't do that. I got to have that paid by the bank by the end of the year. Well, let's figure out what we can do now to make that. So now you've got to either increase your price. We've got to figure out if you have too many employees. We're figuring out the margins there, and we're really helping them really grow their business. And, lo and behold, it's kind of funny. Once we do all that and figure that out, the next month's like, okay, well, now we have 4 trucks coming in because we figured out some efficiency issues, 5 trucks because we did that, and they're back in line where they're, okay, let's bring it. Now it looks like you're going to have that line of credit paid off by November again. And so, again, that's the conversations that you could easily have over the phone without having any numbers in front of them. right? And that's what we had to learn. We had to learn how to tell a story.
So that's cool. I love it. Helping them figure out what they need to do to grow without actually saying, here's the chart or here's the spreadsheet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something evil like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, believe me, it's evil.
Tell me, your clients, were they, once they got on board with you or you got
Mm-hmm.
on board with them,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
was this a, hey, you're there forever? Or is this a, hey, let me teach you how to fish kind of thing? And after a while, they would go off on their own?
I'd say both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, both. The idea is we'd love to have a client forever. I mean, that's great. We do have clients for 20 years. We also have clients for 2 or 3 years. Our average client stays with us for about 4.5 years is what we typically find. And that 4.5 years typically is because when we onboard a client, the first thing our onboarding team asks is, hey, what's your end goal? Is your end goal to sell the company? You want to grow it to $100 million? What's your off ramp here? And so, a client might say, hey, I'd like to sell it for $5 million in 3 years. Okay, great. Let's figure out how we can make that happen. And so that's where it all comes from. We have to identify really what the on ramp is. Maybe the on ramp is, I would like to get so big that we can then have a CFO, have a full C-suite, have a board of directors or whatever. Okay, great. Let's figure that out, and then we'll posture it in there. We had one client that we had for a long time, and they started at about $3 million. They ended up selling it at $100 million. So it was a really nice growth pattern there. And I'd say about the $60 or $70 million mark, they're like, you know what? I think we need, because all these government contracts we have, I think we need to go ahead and have somebody on staff. We're like, we agree with you. Let's figure out how we can, manage that. And so we actually helped them actually find this person. Just coincidentally within our, we don't. That's not what we typically do. But we end up help find this person, vet that person out, and then we sat alongside that person. We were their FP&A person for that whole time until they eventually sold. So it's kind of one of those things that, hey, sometimes it's a short-term thing and sometimes a longer-term thing. But because it's subscription-based, the client always has control over that, right? And so, 6 months in, they're like, hey, you guys said this, you guys aren't doing this, we're going to terminate services. That's fine. They terminate that day and then they're off and going. Or they can continue on, for 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever. And we hold that on us. And that was a big part of it, because we were offering a service that didn't exist. How you can't lock somebody into that service when it doesn't exist, right? With anywhere else. And so we had to figure out, hey, how can we make this very risk adverse for the new client coming in to test it out, try it out. And that's how the subscription based model just kind of, came about. It wasn't one of these genius things. It was one of those things we had to figure out how to make, in order for us to grow, in order for us to bring these clients in, how can we make it easy for the easy entry point for the client?
Nice. Tell me a story about you selling to Anders. Did Anders come to you?
Yeah.
Come to them and say, hey.
Yeah, great point. So again, thought leadership was a big part of it. We wrote many articles. We were in books. We spoke at different events, and we had no intention of selling, zero. But we built the company in a position that if we did sell, we'd always have a strong 3-year look back. So we wouldn't have to apologize for what happened last year or explain away why we had this big dip or whatever that might be. We would always have that 3-year runway or 3-year look back that was solid. Of course, we want to have the runway going forward and making it look great too. And it just happened that when we were speaking at one of the events, one of the partners came up and said, hey, would you guys ever be interested in selling? And we got that all the time. And the funny part about that is that we got it all the time where people would come up and we'd say, hey, here's our 10 requirements or 5 requirements, basically 5 requirements. And they're like, well, we can't do that. And the autonomy.
Was it a dollar amount or was
no,
it?
No, it was like
you to take care of our clients.
Yeah, no, it was like, we stay as a unit. We've got our autonomy. We don't just get parsed out. This is not a acqui-hire type of thing. We had to the way we pay our employees is a lot different than most firms. We have a salary, then we have a monthly incentive based on the book of business they have that fluctuates, and it's pretty cool. Clients love it, but again, for accounting firms, that's different. We didn't bill by the hour, and so we weren't going to change that. So there's a lot of things that were really different. And we had to have buy-in, and also we had to have buy-in from all of our directors, and so that was another thing. We had 5 directors; they all had to say yes, and so
unanimously.
unanimously. Yeah.
Wow.
And their structure was also paid differently. They got bonuses based on growth and, things that we really wanted to incentivize and profit margin and that sort of thing. And so, it was one of those things that, at some point everybody would say, we can't do that one. Sorry. We can't do this one. No, can't do that. And finally, one of them said, we can do that. I was like, what? You can do that?
So
And
used to hearing no that when you hear a
yeah,
yes,
it
you're
was
like,
like,
I don't even
okay,
know what to do.
let's take a look at it and see what it is. And super skeptical, of course. And we went through the vetting process, and it was like, wow, this firm is pretty cool, actually. And I never heard of them before. They were out of St. Louis. We were based out of Indiana, and our team is spread all across the United States. We have folks in Hawaii, folks in Texas. They're all over the place. And with that, it was like, this is interesting. And talking to the managing partner, Robert Minkler, and Dave Hartley, the advisory partner that actually oversee our division, I was like, these guys are pretty cool. And I went through everything with them. We brought the director team out. They hung out with their people, and it was like, wow, this is a firm that we could actually one, help grow, and one that we could actually be a big part of. And we did the deal within 6 months. So from start to finish, 6 months, we were part of them and have been autonomous. Basically, we are their virtual CFO service line. So we continued on with that, just a name change over time to Anders Virtual CFO. But everything worked out really well. And I'm not going to say it was perfect because it wasn't. There were times that I hated myself and times I loved it, and it was great. And now we've got to a point that this has been one of the best moves we could have done for not only myself but the team also.
How long ago did this happen?
4 years ago.
Oh, it's been a little while. Okay.
Yeah, so 4 years
ago. Right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, right out of the pandemic. So it was about 2020. Gosh, was it 2021, 2022? Yeah, right in there. Yeah, so we're going into our 5th year of being part of Anders, and like I said, we've grown now. I think we should hit about 18 million in 2026. So we've almost doubled our size again, and we're on track. It's just everything is just going really well. Our employees love everything. Client satisfaction is super high, and then our profit margin went from that 25% close to 30% right now. So again, everything is just really going to where it's a win-win for both of us.
That's incredible. Do you think the pandemic had any drive in Anders looking at you guys from?
I think so. I think so, because we were the only CPA firm out there of our size that was virtual. You had the 1 and 2 person shops. I guess they're virtual. They're working from home or working from whatever. But I didn't really consider that as basically doing the same thing we're doing. Trying to get the culture for a 20, 30 person firm. So they looked at that and they thought, hey, this is kind of cool. If we as Anders are a St. Louis based firm. And we've grown to, they were like $50 million when we came aboard. We've grown to $50 million, and all of our clients are based out of St. Louis, or they have a St. Louis connection. We might have a client in California, but they have a St. Louis connection in some way. How can we grow our accounting firm without doing the normal thing, which accounting firms would just buy another firm in another state, and now all of a sudden they've got another branch there, and eventually they've got 10 different. They can say they're a national firm because they bought 10 different little accounting firms. They didn't want to do that. And they thought, hey, if we can figure out how Summit is doing this, maybe we can do it nationally as well. And that's what they did. And so they bought us with the idea that, hey, these guys are innovators. They're changing the way that people thought about accounting in the regard that, hey, how can we expand? The other thing they thought about is, hey, we're a traditional hourly bill, company. We bill everything by the hour. These guys are profitable and they're doing it in a different way. Can we change the way that we do things and at a scale like that, and make it even better for our team, our employees, our profit margins, and that's something that we're working on right now. And so there's a lot of little things that we did that Anders did better, and there's a lot of things that we did better. And Anders and we as a partner group, now I'm a partner in the partner group, are trying to make it so that the entire firm can really excel in these ages and be not only a high growth firm, but a high client satisfaction, high employee satisfaction firm.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That had to be a very big decision to decide to essentially sell to a company, regardless of who you're selling to.
It was huge.
You're no longer your own boss.
Yeah, it was huge. No pain points at all. That was the bad thing. It's like it wasn't like it wasn't like we were starving for cash. We're making more money we've ever made in our lives. It wasn't like our clients hated us. It wasn't like the cliff. We had some major issues. We had zero pain points, and that's when they came to us. It's like, wow, why are we doing this? What are we doing? And we thought, hey, this seems like it's the right thing. Let's do it. But you're right. Once I was told no, oh my God, it was like the world's coming to an end.
I know.
It was like I haven't been told no in 20 years. It's like,
Yeah.
no, and I'm being funny with that. My team told me no all the time, but I was always the final say when I wasn't. That was tough. And to be honest with you, it still is tough as an entrepreneur. That's not going to leave you hardly at all. But they made it where our department has a lot of the autonomy that you really need in order to be to basically satisfy what I encourage. And we did the same thing with our employees. Our employees, like I mentioned, they get paid a salary based on national wages, and then they get an incentive based on how the book of business they're managing. And so our employees have got to figure out how to utilize their team and how to basically how to delegate instead of abdicate. And really, the more that they do themselves, the less they can grow and less they can, build their revenue or build their income. And we've done it within the company. So we created an entrepreneurial type company within our company. And that was, and Anders, to their credit, has allowed us to maintain that. And that's what it's all about. And when I saw, we had our entire director team, which consists of about 5 people, they all made partner this year. And that was probably one of the coolest things I could say that, really ever happened, through the journey. It was like, wow, seeing these folks become partners at a large accounting firm was like pretty, I thought was pretty unreal and pretty cool. And probably it's one of my biggest feathers I can put in my cap, if you want to say that, or biggest accomplishments I think we've had outside of the money and all that kind of stuff. That was probably the number one.
Fair. Jody, we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to ask you something about employees and hiring.
Sure.
Because remote employees, the culture, all that kind of stuff sounds like it's a very big deal for you.
Yep.
I got the same situation, very big deal for me.
Yep.
But that does not mean it's easy. So what has been your secret to success as far as finding people, keeping people, and just maintaining, letting them know what the culture is of the business, even though you're remote?
Yeah. So finding people, we found it be fairly easy once thought leadership happened within our industry. So being a thought leader in the accounting industry was huge. We had podcasts with young CPAs talking about it. We had, the conferences that we spoke at. It really drew attention to us on a national basis, where it wasn't really hard for us to find employees. We would just reach out to our sources and we could find individuals to fill spots, which was great. And then tapping into the colleges, for the entry level folks was, worked out well too. So that was the big key, just being the thought leader within our industry. So it attracted people to want to work for us. It's a lot easier saying no to somebody than trying to talk somebody into it. And that's how we always looked at it. Once we got them, it was really important that the culture was strong, and we do that many different ways. The incentive plan for employees, we have regular fun meetings every Monday where it starts with a joke and someone's telling a joke. And, you can imagine 50 accountants in there and somebody starts out with a joke and then they have a fun fact and we start sharing stuff. And so it's just more of a get to know you culture type meeting. And some people think, oh, what a waste of time. It's like, no, that's great. Our team loves it. And then we have, in addition to that, we have quarterlies where we take our leadership team off site and we work through the quarterly rocks on an EOS type structure. And that keeps our team really bonded and they love it. And then we have 2 entire team retreats. Once every 6 months, we take the entire team off site because there's no such thing as on site, but we'll take them to Vegas for basically about 5 days in Vegas, in which everything is super structured and super. It's designed not to, the retreats are designed. We stay at a nice hotel on the Strip and all that kind of cool stuff. But the idea is, hey, let's work on the soft skills. Let's work on, how to handle rejection. Let's work on all the cool stuff. So we'll bring in guest speakers to help with that. It's never, hey, what's the new tax code? And let's walk through it. Never that. Which is the cool thing. So it's always designed to really, where the team just loves it. And we do that once in Vegas, and then we do it once in St. Louis. In St. Louis, because that's where the mothership's at now. And we used to do it in 2 different locations. Now St. Louis is one of the things where they can get a chance to meet other folks within the firm, knowing that, hey, the firm isn't just the small, I say small, 60-person division that's doing 18 million. It's a 400-person firm that's doing close to 100 million, and it really kind of gets them out there, because the key to doing all of that is that when you are remote, you're only as big of a company as the people you work with. And what I mean by that is that, James, if I'm working with you all the time, and I work with Sandy and Bob and Jeremy, it's a 4-person team. It's a 4-person company. I don't care how many people you have. You only know 4 people that I can ask questions, rely on, because you don't know anybody else out there, right? And when you bring in when you do the different events like that, now I'm hanging out with, 2 other people, Sally and Mark or whatever. It's like, oh, these are cool people. And so if I have a question, I bum a question off of them and get to know them a little bit better. And every time we do that, they get to know even more people. Because the number one reason why people stay at work is they develop that friendship. And that friendship is the key there. And so that's what the retreats are designed for. They're not designed to like a normal retreat where you're like, I can't wait to get out of here at 5 o'clock and I'm out. When 5 o'clock hits, they're like, what are we doing now, guys? Let's figure out and hang out. And then then they'll be out till like 1 o'clock in the morning a lot of times. And the purpose of their retreat, we never start until 10 o'clock the next day, because
smart.
We want them to have fun, enjoy things. Plus, if they have client things, they can do it before the meeting, so they have full attention during the meeting. And so it's designed really to really build that camaraderie that you're talking about and that culture you're talking about. And so that's why the team stays together. That's why they're there, and that's why the remote works. But you have to be very intentional with it. You can't. It's just not going to happen just by happening. You've got to be intentional with it. You got to spend the money. Keep in mind, 4% of your money, your revenue is going to go to brick and mortar type building anyways. Why not take that 4.5% and put it towards retreats and things like that to bond your team?
Right. Fair. I love it. Jody, where can people find you?
Well, you can actually Google me. I'm all over the internet. That's one thing. But if you want to reach directly out to me, you reach out to Jay Grunden, JGrunden at AndersCPA.com. And, with that, I'd be happy to respond. And for anybody on the podcast, if you want to set up an hour meeting just to chat, bounce ideas off, I'm very open to that. No cost or anything like that. And then feel free. I'll send you a calendar invite and we can kind of go from there.
Nice. Tell me, you mentioned some books. Do you have any of those top of mind, or that you can remember if it was way back when?
Yeah, the book that we actually found our company on was E-Myth Revisited. It was one of the coolest books that I've ever read. I read it and I thought, wow, this is cool. And it's basically Michael Gerber's talking about how to process everything so that you can step out of the business. And it was kind of funny because he showed McDonald's as a perfect example. Any McDonald's you go into, you've got the same stuff, same flavor, all that kind of stuff. And so it was like, well, when we designed the practice, it was like, well, how do I scale this? I'm the best CFO in the world. If I get out of here, everybody's going to leave. It's like, no, you got to figure out processes so that if James comes in, you can take that over and you can figure that out and you can move right into my shoes and then I can build another one and that sort of thing. And that's what we really founded it upon. It was just one of those things I read many, many times. I told my partner this when we first started. He goes, what does this mean? You're not going to work? I'm going to be the one doing all the work? I go, no. We're going to build process so that we can.
I built a system that says you do everything, right?
Exactly. It's like, no, that's not how it works. But I'd say E-Myth Revisited is by far the one thing that really kind of helped me. And it may or may not be for you, but I would find that one book or that one idea that, hey, can really motivate and really kind of help you into that next level. But and that one was definitely the one for me.
Yeah. What's funny? I started my business way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as way back when as you, 2006, whatever. And I remember I had a client that suggested I read that book.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I thought this is one of those judge a book by its cover kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to tell me not to start a business.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, E-Myth, like this is the entrepreneurial myth. I don't want, no, I'm running with this. I'm starting this business.
Okay.
Anyways, it was later that someone's like, no, it's about systems. And then I checked it out and I was like, oh, well, that was, I don't know, it was probably a decade after it was recommended to me.
Oh, no way. Seriously? Oh, that's hilarious.
I probably could have used this a while ago. So yeah, great book. Great book. Systematize everything.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Jody, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, James, it's been a pleasure, man.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumph and successes of business owners across the land. What do we got here? My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country, on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur and all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. And what else we got here? If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, give it a big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those friends that are interested in growing their business, which we better hope that's everybody that's got a business, because otherwise it's grow or die, right? We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Jody Grunden of Anders CPA Jody. Can you tell us that email address one more time?
Yeah, sure can. It's jgrunden, Grunden, at anderscpa.com.
I love it. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.